I think expecting Gen.G to ban it here, the smaller was their #1 answer that we saw them pull out. And generally, outside of that, under no circumstances have teams be allowed to get that Yone.
And the Ashe is the other thing that's such an incredibly high priority. With that Kalista ban, it is important, but I think a trade of Yone and Ashe is going to be how we start this best of 5. And Zeus is going to say, well, I might play it, but it's probably my buddy in the mid lane.
That's the beauty of this pick for T1. It is a flex between top and mid. We'll see what T1 do with it later on as the Skarner looking to be the priority for Canyon. We'll see if they look to pair that alongside the Ashe, which you already mentioned, Atlus. The Rumble is something else to take into consideration. Yone plus Rumble is such a terrifying combo, and there are so many junglers that can help facilitate it as well. Sejuani is one that potentially comes to mind to really enable that mid lane matchup as the Skarner locked in for Canyon.
And Canyon, obviously, we'd all love to see him on carries, but Skarner, definitely the strongest jungler currently on the patch, with the exception of that Nilly that was banned away early on. Now, Gen.G knew 100% that this Yone was going to get picked up. We've seen teams do this, particularly in best of 5 in the first game, give it up. What is their answer going to be? I was actually expecting the Ashe to get picked up here early on because it has been such an insane prio pick. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case, so T1 getting Yone and Ashe right here on blue
Ashe
side.
Renata. I'm actually very surprised because T1 had Sejuani Rumble just straight up and available for them. That top side has been so incredibly strong and it fits their playstyle so incredibly well. But what this does is it hides where that Yone is going. It opens up the board and gives this bottom lane a whole lot of power.
Is it the Blitzcrank to come out here?
So.
Because if they don't pick it here, I do think it's going to get taken away. Is Chovy going to get his hands on the Sylas here?
They're going for a bruiser top side on the side of Gen.G, looking to get down and dirty and look to try and scrap against T1. We saw a similar composition from T1 against top eSports in their first game, where they were able to find great success, the key difference being a Renekton coming through from the side of Kiin. Now we turn our attention to that jungle role. Gen.G, what are they going to ban away? The Sejuani, we already talked extensively about it as an option.
Yeah.
That's going to be the first one removed. Do they want to consider AP threats? The Blitzcrank also discussing that. Lehends, very well known for his Blitzcrank. They're not going to allow him to have that one. Now you kind of move into uncharted territory. Do you also consider Rakan something worth taking away?
Yeah, I think Rakan's a really important one. Do they just ban the Rumble? Because it's still very, very strong, opens the doors for a lot more 80 heavy compositions as well. Certainly a lot of things on Gen.G's mind is what they could be taking away here.
The benefit here for Gen.G is that they will know where this Yone is going before they lock in their final pick. So we'll see, gives them a little bit more leeway. I imagine Peyz is going to be picking up an 80 carry here on R4. As the Rumble does get taken away, Gen.G also still saying we don't know where this Yone is going. We haven't seen it for Zeus in the top lane in a while, but given his history, wouldn't be no surprise. The Ezreal going to get taken away. Extremely self-sufficient pick that is very hard to punish, and I think the range, so you don't have to interact too much with that Ashe lane, quite big as well. What is Peyz going to lock in here to go with this bruiser style? Because it's really hard to find something that can play into the Ashe Renata, and might be a lane swap on the cards.
Well, I was going to say my instincts are something along the lines of Kai'Sa, but Peyz no stranger to the Ziggs. It looks like that's going to be the direction, the safe wave clear. And I mean, you look at this top side from Gen.G, wave clear is definitely something that they're lacking. But I feel like Ziggs can be very self-sufficient, especially if Lehends wants to play and engage support. And I think that it complements the composition nicely. T1 now considering what they're going to put in the jungle.
A lot of different considerations.
A lot of potential options being flicked through by Gumayusi, teasing the crowd a little bit, but it is Oner. We're at Worlds, and his Vi is going to be the option.
Gonna have to be that. Oh, the Gragas lock-in as well. Also kind of keeps things up in the air as far as where these two champions are going. Of course, Zeus is an incredible Gragas player just in general, so it's not likely to go to Fake, but he's played it a few times.
Yeah, there was that random 3 weeks where everyone in the LCK was pranked into thinking Gragas mid was good.
Because Faker was just winning on it,
It wasn't. It was all a psych out. This used to be a really good matchup for specifically tank Gragas. With Grass, back when his sustain was a lot better, you could just completely stonewall the Renekton. He never really was able to get shoved. I do imagine, though, looking at the damage profile for T1, this is going to be the full AP variety, so maybe a little bit more carry or shutdown potential early on here. for Gen.G, but they are really heavy on the AP, and that's something that I do think we have seen be a problem for them before.
I mean, that's certainly true. The advantage is that Yone is a champion that very rarely builds things like the Merc Treads. He's very locked in his typical itemization build, along with the Gragas as well, who you kind of expect to go more towards that AP direction. I feel like that they should be fine. I think the biggest thing for Gen.G is being able to play through that first item spike. When you have this strong, skirmish-heavy topside in Renekton, Skarner, Sylas, you're going to be looking to fight around Herald, fight for those early dragons. You want to draw T1 into those early skirmishes before they have that opportunity to scale. And I think that it's going to be crucial for Gen.G to kind of force T1 into their game.
Now that we also know...
For game number 1 in our second semi-final of Worlds 2024 to decide who is going to be meeting BLG in the final. Oh man, already just a little bit of a defensive start. Not going to have those insane level 1s like we did in game 2 yesterday.
The atmosphere is absolutely electric, and I think back to that spring final, the epic 5-game series that we had.
Where did those 5 games come? I'm still actually confused about where they came from. It shouldn't have happened that way.
I don't think we ever figured it out.
It's a shame that we were robbed in summer of them meeting in the playoffs, and I'm hopeful, well, we've got them here at Worlds. We get to see this opportunity.
Better late than never, eh, Vedi?
T1 now setting up for an invade, looking to potentially set up for a swap.
All right, so I was saying that there might not be a swap, but there is. It is immediately spotted. Canyon's just going to move over to his blue side quadrant, so... should be okay. Kiin also going to be rotating immediately, getting the idea that there is going to be a potential lane swap in the air. Does make a fair bit of sense, but leaving a Ziggs in a bottom lane by himself is a recipe for plates.
Well, that's the big thing. Ziggs is a champion that even in top lane, because of his passive, you actually do a decent amount even for all the resistances. And if you are in a bot lane, it's going to be even more pronounced. T1 though, looking at the setups here, Zeus actually did go for Grasp, same for the mid laners, but shouldn't come as a surprise there. There's been a lot of Grasp mids throughout the tournament, even seeing it on ranged champions like Smolters, and it looks like Gen.G is going to go for the variety where you do have Lehends just laning together with Chovy or Canyon, starting on the bot side, and looks like just the usual jungle split. Neither jungler able to steal away a camp.
Yep, just some vertical jungling to start things off here as Kiin's just doing his best to zone Zeus away from minions. Of course, Gragas in a lane swap is pretty good at it. Teleport from Kiin to get him towards that top side of the map. 3 versus 1 could be a little bit dangerous. But having hit level 2, I think he should be all right.
It's actually really nice timing. As he arrives, the minion dies and he immediately dinks too. So he got enough experience in bot to not be at quite a high risk of a dive. But even with that early attention being paid towards the mid lane, we do see Baker still doing fine. Bot side might be a dive setup here. Zeus is still fairly full health.
All right, let's see whether they can actually make this one work. You can see the barrel has been charged. Doesn't do a whole lot of damage at this point. Level 2 for Zeus does have that body slam. Going to use it immediately onto Canyon. Already down to 50% as Lehends is trying to tank that turret for as long as possible. One more's going to do it, but Peyz almost just straight up dead. And Canyon, 2 turret shots, has to flash. And Zeus says, not today, boys. Lehends looking for another option. He flashes the Zenith Blade. Lehends able to walk out of that one, but he's still going to have to flash as Faker comes down to make sure his top laner stays alive.
A colossal blunder on the execution of the dive. Lehends can't connect the E. The tower aggro is mismanaged, and Gen.G are forced to retreat on their first play of the series.
And Gen.G, I think, should count themselves lucky. That could have gone way worse.
Oh, yeah.
The Canyon unintendedly getting the aggro there was the big thing. I think it might have been red buff. He clearly wasn't expecting it. They were looking for the redive. And that moment, bot time for Faker to TP towards the bottom lane. Only good thing for Gen.G is that did give Chovy a little bit of time while he still has a teleport available. But T1 going to be feeling great about that, trading just that flash on Zeus and a TP for multiple summoners from Gen.G.
There were so many instances there where it was very awkward for Zeus because he was 1 minion off leveling up, but the cannon minion had aggro. Hang on a minute, a play.
Yeah, Lehends, Hex flashing in. Not going to find that Zenith Blade either. Good handshake from Keria, and Kiin taking so much damage. Lehends got to hit those if Gen.G is going to find some tempo back in this game.
Wow, Gumayusi's Ashe so prevalent and even causes the screen to freeze.
Yeah.
Lehends 3 for 3 on misses when it comes to the Zenith Blade now. He needs to be able to connect those if he wants to set up plays for his team, but I question a couple nerves feels like coming through here from the side of Gen.G early on.
Lehends, known as a joker, but has had some moments. Him and Peyz, I think, have throughout the course of this roster often been the most criticized. Has had incredible performances. Think back to that first series against Home Alive in summer playoffs, but then also often cited as the reason why they struggled so much in the actual finals. I do want to note the fact that Gen.G has triple teleport bailed them out a little bit because they were able to still catch that top wave. Even with Kiin being bullied out of that lane, Chovy could TP top, and Kiin has now made his way to the mid lane.
Oh, that's very cute. Canyon being able to dodge the Hawk shot there as Chovy rotating back down, spotted on this control ward as Keria taking some chain lash damage. Chovy should be able to get out of here just fine, no worries. Should be able to dodge some moves, and Faker with his Unbound Soul just going to be able to try and push this wave in. Of course, the luxury of being able to teleport to the top lane is purely because Faker had to use his to get down towards bottom side, but good handshake going to come in here. Could this be first blood against Chovy? That would be such devastating news for Gen.G. T1 already with a lot of control, 600 gold in the lead, and Faker is really having a good time in this lane despite having to vacate early.
I mean, this matchup is quite favored for the Yone early on just because of how restrained Sylas is as a champion around cooldowns. He just doesn't have them in the early game to effectively trade against a champion like Yone who could just keep spamming that Q. The CS advantage, you rightly said, though, coming from the fact that that early TP came through. And Chovy, he's going to be forced back to base very soon. He doesn't want to miss this wave. They're level 6. Faker threatening the potential ult there to try and zone Chovy away from that farm, but he will be able to get the can.
Yeah, and with level 6 gained as well.
Yeah, and with Kiin being pulled around the map, we see that he's actually, even with the fact that he was able to catch that middle wave, he has had to really pay. Whereas Zeus, because he absorbed that early dive, has just been able to catch multiple waves, and I think T1 as a team always look their best when they get to play this aggressive. When the lanes are